Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 123, Illusion Confusion. The episode begins with Ash and the gang being lost in a forest, as fucking usual, complaining about the situation. Ash, though, wasn't complaining that much, as he believed that he could get them out of the forest, fully determined. However, they'd been going around for fucking hours at this point, and Misty knew that Ash wasn't capable of getting them out, so this just annoyed her, having to deal with both being lost and Ash's unfounded optimism. They were still lost as night approached, and things began to get even worse as they heard a whole bunch of spooky sounds. This caused them to get frightened as they all tried to huddle together. When they bump into a tree and find that it has a creepy face on it. Obviously immensely terrified by this unrealistic bullshit, they run away, but they can't seem to escape these trees as more and more of them begin to appear to have these weird-ass scary faces. As they're running, though, they appear to get saved by a mysterious Pokemon they've never seen before, as it uses an attack known as Foresight, which makes its eyes glow red, and vanquishes the scary faces from all of the trees, much to Ash and the gang's shock. They're then even more shocked, unable to even catch their breath, as Gary approaches and reveals that this Pokemon was named Hoot Hoot and it belonged to him. And he also states that all those scary faces that Ash and the gang just saw, they were entirely illusionary. They weren't even real, and Hoot Hoot had the ability to identify illusions and get rid of them, leading him to congratulate his Hoot Hoot for successfully getting rid of the scary faces. Ash then looks up Hoot Hoot in his Pokedex, which reveals to him that Hoot Hoot stands on one leg, but uses both its powerful eyes to see clearly, even through the darkest night. Gary then mocks Ash for not knowing about how you needed a Hoot Hoot to essentially survive in this forest, telling him that he has no way of getting out if he didn't have one. Misty counters that if Hoot Hoot was so useful, why was Gary still in the forest? With Gary embarrassingly admitting that he wasn't still in the forest because of Hoot Hoot's failure, but because of his own failure to keep track of time, since he'd been so busy catching Pokemon that he lost track of it. Gary, not wanting to get humiliated any more than he has to, decides to take his leave as he walks further into the forest, presumably on his way out soon. But we never see him again this episode, so I think we're just supposed to assume that. With Gary gone, and therefore Ash not having to admit to Gary that getting a Hoot Hoot was probably a good idea, Ash decides to start looking for one so that they can get out, and his friends try and help him. They look everywhere in the forest, up in trees, Pikachu looks in bushes, but they aren't able to find one. Suddenly, though, a Hoot Hoot then appears out of nowhere by Misty's feet. We didn't even have to fucking search for it. The Hoot Hoot jump scares Misty, so she tries to walk away from it, but the Hoot Hoot continues to follow her anyway, indicating that it had taken a liking to her, because it just showed up by her out of nowhere. It must like her somewhat. Ash assumes that the Hoot Hoot must like humans if it liked Misty, so he tries to say hello to it, but the Hoot Hoot appears to only like Misty, as it gets frightened by him, slaps him a little bit, and runs off, with Ash and the gang trailing behind, not wanting to lose it. They chase Hoot Hoot all the way to a mysterious stone structure, with Brock believing that it was an illusion due to how weird it was and out of place it was in the middle of a forest. Ash and the gang then continue chasing Hoot Hoot past the stone structure, shrugging it off, as Ash orders his Pikachu to use Thunderbolt before the Hoot Hoot could get away. However, before he could get the Thunderbolt off, the Hoot Hoot jumps up to Ash and begins pecking him, right on top of his head. Suddenly, a woman then appears out of nowhere, with Hoot Hoot running up to it, indicating that it knew the woman. Brock believes that this woman was yet another illusion, not just due to the fact that she fucking showed up out of nowhere, but also because she was so ugly, it was something that couldn't possibly be real, only appearing in dreams. Ash agrees with Brock, stating that the only way that this woman would appear would be in his nightmares, not even his dreams. The woman obviously gets angry at this, and confirms that she was in fact a real person, stating her name was Hagatha. She eventually calms down, not blaming Ash and the gang for being cautious of illusions, and explaining to them that if they wanted to escape from the illusions and get out of the forest, she would be their only hope. She then takes Ash and the gang back to her house, and further explains that she rents out her Hoot Hoot to travelers so that they could safely guide themselves through the forest. She had taken Ash and the gang to her house so that they could pick one up. However, she then realized that she had already rented out all of the Hoot Hoot at her house, meaning that the one that Ash and the gang had already run into was her only one left, and stated that they couldn't use that one because it has failed every time to guide a traveler through the forest, adding that it was the only one who failed. So, Hagatha essentially just tells Ash and the gang to stay at her house till the morning, when she should have some of her other Hoot Hoot back so they could take one of them. However, Ash didn't want to spend any longer in this forest than he had to, so he didn't want to wait until morning to get a Hoot Hoot. So he requests to take the one from before that never successfully guided anyone through the forest, stating that all Hoot Hoot probably needed was a competent trainer to help it, like himself, insinuating that the only reason why those other trainers couldn't make it through the forest was because they didn't know how to follow Hoot Hoot's instructions. Despite Ash's kindness to the Hoot Hoot, Hoot Hoot proceeded to attack Ash once again when it picked it up, and jumped into Misty's lap instead. Ash complains why the fuck Hoot Hoot liked Misty so much, with Hagatha stating her theory that Hoot Hoot probably only got along with pretty girls since she trained it. Ash then rebutted, though, that there were no pretty girls in sight, insulting both Misty and Hagatha, much to their annoyance, as they glared at him evilly. Oh man, Ash, you might fucking die here, who knows, either to them or the Hoot Hoot. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was also lost in this forest, trying to find their way out, as they stumbled across Ash and the gang, who had since left Hagatha's house with Hoot Hoot in an attempt to escape. Team Rocket begins to tail Ash and the gang, wanting to steal Pikachu. Eventually, Ash and the gang, along with Hoot Hoot, reach the same place where they originally experienced the illusions with the trees. However, this time, they experienced an illusion relating to Will-O-Wisp fireballs showing up. Hoot Hoot wasn't doing anything to help them, being scared himself. So Ash and the gang simply tried to hit the Will-O-Wisps away with their arms, to no avail, obviously. Ash orders Hoot Hoot to do its job and fucking help, but Hoot Hoot refused. Misty then tried to get Hoot Hoot to help, though, and because it actually liked Misty, it tried its best to help by using its Foresight attack, like it was supposed to, but it didn't work. This likely being the reason why Hoot Hoot had failed to guide travelers in the past, if its Foresight was this weak that it didn't even do anything. Despite Hoot Hoot's failure, Ash orders him to try again, but Hoot Hoot ignores him yet again, leading Misty to plead with it to use its attack, and it thankfully does. Dude, once again, why does it only listen to Misty? However, it didn't matter, as it literally just failed again. This entire reattempt was pointless, and then things got even worse for Ash and the gang, as all the Will-O-Wisps combined to create a flaming ghost-type creature, and this just terrified Hoot Hoot to the point where it gave up and ran away. Not having any way to defend themselves now, Ash and the gang followed suit, with Team Rocket watching calmly from the trees, confused as to why Ash and the gang were running, as they couldn't see these Will-O-Wisp ghosts, because since they were illusions, only the people who were affected by them could see them. As Ash and the gang and Hoot Hoot apparently managed to outrun the ghosts, or the illusion just disappeared on its own, who fucking knows, Ash immediately yelled at the Hoot Hoot for cowering, and explained that since it was a Pokemon, it had a job to help them out, screaming at it that it should never give up its duty. Misty felt bad for all the screaming that Hoot Hoot had to endure, so she simply just requested that it try its best next time to not run away, adding that it shouldn't just not run away for Ash's sake, because Ash wanted it to, but he shouldn't run away so that he can prove to himself that he's just as capable as any other Hoot Hoot. Okay, maybe I see why Hoot Hoot liked Misty a little more now, especially after this. While Ash and Misty had been talking to Hoot Hoot, a rope had appeared around Pikachu while they weren't watching, courtesy of Team Rocket. The rope proceeded to pull Pikachu up into a tree, leaving Ash to jump up and catch Pikachu before he was taken away, but this just resulted in him being pulled up with Pikachu by Team Rocket, who were working the rope with fishing rods. Team Rocket proceeded to say their motto as quick as they can, and then use the fishing rod to slam Ash into a tree, causing him to let go of the rope and fall to the ground, meaning that Pikachu was now tied up in a rope all by itself, allowing Team Rocket to reel him in with the fishing rod and put him inside a box. Team Rocket then dispatched more rope and used it as a zipline as they hop into a wooden boat and make their escape in it. Dude, don't fucking question it. Why were they using a boat without water? Who knows? Where did they get this extra rope for the zipline? How did a boat fit on the zipline? Just don't question it, okay? The point is, they tried to escape. At least there was a little bit of logic, as the boat was obviously too heavy for the zipline, and it causes the rope to snap, dropping Team Rocket and shattering their boat when it hits the ground, and also causing them to drop Pikachu, leading Ash to pick him up and take him into his arms. In an attempt to get Pikachu back, Team Rocket send out Arbok and Victreebel, with Victreebel obviously eating James's head before he did anything, and this all leads Ash to send out his Bulbasaur to attack. However, the battle is stopped as Hoot Hoot begins trembling in fear like it did before, indicating that it sensed something. However, Ash and the gang couldn't see any illusions this time, but that's because Team Rocket were the ones who were now seeing an illusion, being a Dragonite. Ash and the gang were obviously confused when the Dragonite caused Team Rocket to run away in fear, as they couldn't see anything. Now they knew how Team Rocket felt when they saw them running from those Will-O-Wisps. Ash and the gang then see an illusion of their own, though, as multiple copies of Ash begin to appear, and they all start fighting with each other over which one is the real one. Pikachu gets extremely confused at all this, not sure which Ash was the real one, and in order to determine who it was, he decides to shock every single one of them, which manages to get rid of all the fake Ash, but leave the real Ash shocked. Literally. Bulbasaur and Hoot Hoot weren't shocked literally, but they were definitely shocked by Pikachu's sudden Thunderbolt attack. Misty then experiences an illusion of her own, being a whole bunch of bug Pokemon attacking her, which honestly was probably the scariest one here, because she has a genuine fear of bug Pokemon. She asks for Hoot Hoot to help her, but Hoot Hoot was too scared himself, so he runs away, until he runs into Ash, who yells at him to help Misty, since Misty has been so kind to him. This makes the Hoot Hoot gather up the courage to try his best, as he manages to successfully use his foresight to fire a huge red blaze that destroys every single illusion in the forest, and reveals the source behind the illusions, being a Haunter and a Gengar, who must have been putting on the illusions in an attempt to troll people, being the trolly ghost Pokemon that they were. Seeing that the Foresight was able to unveil them, Misty tells Hoot Hoot to use Foresight again to see if it could do even more damage to them, so Hoot Hoot uses Foresight for a second time, and it manages to stun the ghost Pokemon, allowing Ash to send out his Bulbasaur and have it use Vine Whip, and then have his Pikachu use Thunderbolt. These two attacks are enough to send the Gengar and Haunter floating away in fear. Ash picks up Hoot Hoot into his arms, congratulating it on finally being able to use a Foresight attack, but Hoot Hoot still doesn't care for Ash that much, and proceeds to peck him on the head yet again, and return to Misty, who she was glad was safe. Ash then fell over in annoyance. He had done everything in his power to try and bond with the Hoot Hoot, but it just wouldn't care about him. Ash and the gang then proceed to try and make their way out of the forest, but by the time daylight reaches, they have approached yet another stone structure. This makes them think that they were still lost, even with Hoot Hoot's guidance, and they only further think this when they see Hagatha walking towards them again, indicating that they must have been nearby her house still. When they greet Hagatha, though, she gets mad, revealing that she wasn't actually Hagatha, but her twin sister, Nagatha. She explained to them that they were just on the edge of the forest now, and could leave at any moment, but she requested that they come back to her house first, so that they could drop off Hoot Hoot to her, so she could give it back to her twin sister. They must run like a joint operation together, these sisters. Like, Hagatha is at the beginning of the forest to give the Hoot Hoot, and then when the trainer successfully reaches the end of the forest, then Nagatha is there to take the Hoot Hoot back, I guess. But anyways, Ash and the gang oblige, as they go to Nagatha's house, and they give back the Hoot Hoot, also taking the time to call Hagatha on Nagatha's computer to let her know that they escaped safely. She is relieved at this, and then hangs up the phone, leading Ash and the gang to then leave the forest, saying goodbye to Nagatha and the Hoot Hoot. Damn, I really wish Misty caught the Hoot Hoot, you know? Meanwhile, still in the forest was Team Rocket. They didn't think they were still in the forest, though. They fully thought they were on a beach, relaxing. But this was because the Haunter and Gengar were still up to no good, making illusions, and this beach was one of them. Hey, if the Haunter and Gengar wanted to do some trolling, Team Rocket is the perfect people to troll.